Hi guys, and welcome back to the Old Goal TV. Today we have got a new video for you, and we are going to be looking at Rafa's attributes, stats and contract situation to see if he can fit the bill and be that striker that Wolves so desperately need after sending Patrick Cutrone out on loan to Empoli in the Serie A. And the first thing I want to address in this video is we're not going to have a face cam, as I think to represent the stats and attributes better, a PowerPoint slide is the way to go forward. The second thing I want to address is the reason for making this video. It comes off the back of the news that Wolves have reportedly rejected a €15 million bid for Rafa from Atletico Madrid. And he will come back to Wolverhampton to discuss his future with Bruno LAGE at the club to see if he can become a part of the first team or whether he is going to be sold. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we're going to start off on a positive note by looking at Rafa's positive attributes and stats. And the first thing we have got to start off with is the fact that he is 6'3" tall. He's a big guy and could provide some physicality that is sometimes lacked up front for Wolves, especially when we're playing younger players. So that could be a very, very good for us. I think we've also got to notice that he was fouled 62 times last season. That means he can draw fouls. He's winning free kicks for us in dangerous areas, which could be good, especially if we have some good heads of the ball next season. Kilman looks promising, so does Bolly, Mosquera as well. And with Rafa coming in, we could have some really, really good headers of the ball from the set pieces, so that could be good. We've also got to see that he has an average rating per game last season at Huesca of 7.37, which is nearly up at 7.5, which is really, really good, especially if he's playing for a team that are at the bottom of the table last year, like Huesca were. That is a really good average, showing he's been putting in some very, very decent performances. And then there's the obvious one, isn't it? 13 goals and 1 assist for Huesca last season. And for someone who's still relatively young at 24, especially for a striker, there are some very decent stats in a top league. And as I say, especially for a team that were down the bottom last season. So, they are some good stats, showing he's a proven goal scorer, despite maybe not doing it in the early stage of his career at Wolves and Nottingham Forest. And the final one we've got is that he took 120 shots last season, which shows he is not afraid to shoot. And Wolves could definitely do with that in their team sometimes. Sometimes they lack the want to shoot. Saw that especially in players like Trincao in pre-season and in the first game. So that could be very good for us. But we've looked at the positives. Now let's have a look at the negatives. So as we move on to the negatives, I don't want to spend too much time on them. No one wants to see the negatives, but we have to go into them a little bit. And I think the most pressing one comes at the start. He has, last season, playing for Huesca, as I've already pointed out, he had a 16.5 expected goals, but he only scored 13, which is... It's quite unusual that you see a player have more expected goals than he does actual goals, because usually they score goals that aren't necessarily expected. Especially I saw Rafa score quite a few very good goals last season for Huesca. So I think it can be assumed that he must have missed some relatively big chances, which means that, maybe he could improve his finishing, but that can be worked on, obviously, very easily. He was caught offside 38 times last year. That's not a big issue. It's not too many, but it is a negative, as always. He also committed 62 fouls last season, which I thought was interesting, since it's the exact same number that he got given against him. So yeah, that was interesting. Fun fact. But again, it doesn't really matter too much. He's a striker. It's not too crucial. Another one that I thought was not great was the fact that he only had 59 pass completion last season. You know, that we should hopefully be trying to get that up. And the final one, obviously, you can see some of his shots most of his shots weren't on target, so we can try and improve that one for Rafa next season. So we are just going to quickly go over his overall style. Obviously, big, physical, likes to head the ball. He's your typical old-fashioned number 9, old-fashioned striker. He's got a very, very powerful shot, doesn't mind taking on a long shot, doesn't mind taking on a shot in general, as you saw with the 120 shots taken last season. He's not particularly technically gifted, but he obviously makes up with the goals and physicality he brings to the team. So now let's move on to his Olympic breakthrough on the international stage and what life could be like under Bruno Lage for him. So, even despite having a good season at Huesca, Rafa Mir really made his name on the international stage at the Olympics for Spain, where he helped lead Spain to a silver medal, unfortunately losing in the final. On the way there, he did score a hat-trick to get Spain back into the game, a comeback, and they ended up winning 5-2. And that gained him some attention, I think, because teams in Spain especially had seen that he'd done well for Huesca, and then he sort of really proved himself at the Olympics, didn't he? And I think that was possibly what led to a £15 million bid from Atletico for him, and that was quite ambitious. That was quite a lot of money. It was thought the Wolves would accept it, but apparently they've rejected it. I'm not sure if they did reject it or something else went wrong, but apparently they did reject that offer. But there you go. That's how Rafa Mir made a name for himself on the Olympic stage. Let's see how he could line up / play under Bruno Lage. So, as for Rafa Mir and Bruno Lage, he's set to fly to England. He might have already done, I'm not sure. But I think the plan is to have a meeting and discuss his future. I think what was said is that if he wants to leave, he will be sold, and that Wolves will take a price for him and take the cash. Although if he does stay and extend his contract, which is currently down at 1 year, so he'll be able to leave on a free next year and start to negotiate with teams in January. It's really, if he was to stay, we'd need him to sign the contract. I guess it all comes down to whether he wants to be here. If he does, Bruno will keep him, and I'm sure he will be utilised in Lage's system. Speaking of Lage's system, where would he play? As you can see on screen now, this is a potential attack and midfield for Bruno Lage's Wolves in the classic 4-4-2 with an out-and-out striker and a centre forward. This is when everyone is back fit and there, but this is assuming there are no more incomings in the attack and midfield, which I think there will be, and also this is assuming that Mir will stay. It is not a guarantee yet. But as you see, you've got Rafa Mir potentially rotating or partnering Raul Jimenez up front with Fabio Silva or Morgan Gibbs-White in the pocket, although we might sign someone else to play in that number 10 role. If you're wondering why Fabio isn't at the out-and-out striker, apparently Bruno has been training him to play in that number 10 role, so that will be interesting to see how that develops. But, you know, let's see if Mir would really be happy at Wolves. I think finally we have got to go over whether Rafa Mir would actually be happy at Wolves, because that in the end of the day is the deciding factor. It was said that he wasn't very comfortable in England and English football when he first moved to Wolves, and after loan to Nottingham Forest, I think he was insistent on going back to Spain. In the end, that's what he did do. He went to Huesca and was very, very successful. So it'll be interesting to see whether Mir would now be settled in Wolverhampton and ready to play in English football. So yeah, we've just got to see how that one pans out. I see this as very similar to the Patrick Catrone situation. He wanted to go back to Italy, wasn't entirely happy in English football. So yeah, that'll be the deciding factor at the end of the day. If he wants to stay, he'll be utilised. If he wants to go, he's going to have to go, and we'll have to sell him, and he will not extend the contract, and there is a risk he will leave on a free transfer. So that's up to him at the end of the day. That is going to be it from me today. If you did enjoy the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. We are so close to 100 subscribers. Please subscribe. And thanks for watching. But I'll see you next time.